The government has announced new immigration restrictions on 6 countries, citing security concerns. The Department of Homeland Security will suspend visas that can lead to permanent residency for nationals from Eritrea, Kyrgyzstan, Myanmar and Nigeria. Sudan and Tanzania will also stop receiving diversity visas that award green cards to countries with low immigration numbers to the United States. Travel restrictions have been in place on Muslim-majority countries, that is Iran, Libya, Somalia, Syria and Yemen, since 2017. Gabriel Elizondo with more now on the Homeland Security announcement from Washington.
Well, administration officials are saying that, in their words, it's not a travel ban. They're saying it's just travel restrictions and only applies, in theory at least, they say, to a certain group of people that want to come to the United States. And it would be citizens of these 6 countries, but they say it would only apply to immigrant visas for people from those countries that wanted to move to the United States. Administration officials are quick to point out that it will not apply, they say, to people that are applying for student visas or work visas. They also say it will not affect any of the citizens currently in the United States from these 6 countries that are legally here on valid visas. They're saying it simply will only affect those that are applying for new visas to immigrate to the United States. But that still potentially is a lot of people, thousands of people, potentially any people from these 6 countries that will be applying from here on out for immigrant visas to the United States. With a few exceptions, will have those visas denied. Now, administration officials are saying they're trying to avoid the situation of 2017 and that so-called Muslim ban on those 7 predominantly Muslim countries where they were coming to the United States to airports, being detained, held, sent back to their countries. It's had all sorts of confusion and heartache for many families. The Department of Homeland Security is saying they're specifically trying to avoid that by making this a little bit more clear. However, the big question is when this goes into effect, which is February 22nd, how will it actually play out at airports in reality? And that's a big question that we'll have to wait and see.
The original ban was put in place 3 years ago and included Iran, Libya, Somalia, Syria, and Yemen. But it was struck down by the Supreme Court because it did not cite sufficient reasons for keeping people from those countries from entering the U.S. Only after several revisions and adding Venezuela and North Korea to the list did the courts allow the ban. The extension includes Eritrea, Kyrgyzstan, Myanmar, Nigeria, Sudan, and Tanzania.
3 of these are Muslim-majority countries. 2 of them are about half Muslim.
CARE said thousands of American children have been separated from their parents through the previous ban in the guise of national security. While not labeled as a Muslim ban by the White House, CARE says the president's actions speak louder than words.
He campaigned for a Muslim ban. And as we know, he doesn't read national security briefing. It was a campaign promise to his base, and he fulfilled it, and he's continuing the policy.
Critics also note that 4 of the countries are from Africa. They say the president has used profane and disparaging language to describe people from the continent.
He is using this new ban to undercut yet another avenue for people of color to come to the U.S.
Given the Supreme Court's ruling that banning entry to the United States based on detailed criteria and national security is legal, CARE is not counting on the courts to reverse the new ban. Instead, they are supporting an effort in Congress to pass a bill that would stop what it claims is discrimination based on race and religion.
We're just going to continue fighting politically, and we're going to support the No Muslim Ban Act in hopes that can bring some remedy to the situation.
The Trump administration's controversial visa and travel ban has now been extended to include more countries. Nigeria, which boasted strong ties with the United States, has now been included on the list. Both the U.S. citizens and Nigerian immigrants are appalled at this decision. Our next report gets you more.
From February 21, citizens of Eritrea, Myanmar, Kyrgyzstan and Nigeria will no longer be eligible for immigrant visas to the U.S. This has become a major shock not only for Nigerian immigrants but also for American citizens like Lindsay Elston, who recently adopted a Nigerian girl. She fears her daughter might never become a citizen.
I guess the emotion I'm feeling is anger. I don't know if I tend to move towards anger because it makes me angry and sad for the people in my life. But it freaks me out personally. what if I'm bummed out for my friend who didn't get his visa, but what if it's my daughter? Like, what if when it affects us in our home, in our lives?
Elston wants her daughter to have the same rights.
I want my daughter to have the same rights that I do, and it's something that is just really real for us and really, really scary, to be perfectly honest.
Nigeria was taken by surprise after it was included in the pariah states. US has been a strong ally of Nigeria, be it their fight against terror group Boko Haram or other cyber crimes. It is also Nigeria's main trading partner and a close diplomatic ally since 1960. Nigerian immigrants in the US are considered as one of the most successful and educated immigrant groups in the country. They are now seemingly worried.
Not happy about it. Reasons being that some are not comfortable here in Nigeria, in Africa generally, and since we are not comfortable, others should be allowed to travel, and so we should not be restricted all in Nigeria, because I think some should be allowed to travel outside to go and look for means of survival.
In the early days of his administration, Trump passed an executive order that barred citizens of 7 Muslim-majority nations from the US, prompting protests at major airports and several court challenges. However, critics seem to believe adding more countries to the list is a clear case of African cleansing once the Muslim-majority cleansing is done away with. Bureau Report, WION, World is One.
The Trump administration has expanded its travel ban to include 6 more countries after the White House confirmed countries were not meeting their security requirements. The announcement to protect America's national security, however, has attracted global criticism.
He campaigned for a Muslim ban, and as we know, he doesn't read national security briefing. It was a campaign promise to his base, and he fulfilled it, and he's continuing the policy.
3 of these are Muslim majority countries. 2 of them are about half Muslim.
The new list of 6 countries included in this extension: Eritrea, Kyrgyzstan, Burma, Nigeria, Sudan, and Tanzania. They join Iran, Libya, Somalia, Syria, and Yemen, which remain in place from the original ban. Now, DHS says this extension, quote, places new tailored visa restrictions on 6 countries that fail to meet a series of security criteria, demonstrating that they could be a risk to the homeland. The ban was first put in place 3 years ago, but soon thereafter struck down by the Supreme Court, which cited insufficient reasons for keeping people from those countries from entering the United States. Only after the White House submitted several revisions and added Venezuela and North Korea to the list did the courts ultimately uphold the ban. Advocacy organizations tell Fox News thousands of American children have been separated from their parents as the result of the first ban, and insist the president's national security rationale doesn't pass the sniff test. The White House, though, has fiercely disputed claims that the travel ban seeks to single out Muslims or any religious or ethnic group.
The Trump administration is expanding its travel ban by restricting travel from 6 countries, citing security risks, the Department of Homeland Security announced Friday. The countries, Eritrea, Kyrgyzstan, Myanmar, Nigeria, Sudan and Tanzania, join 7 other nations, 5 with Muslim majorities, that were already part of a Trump administration's travel ban announced in 2017. All of the newly named countries except Myanmar have Muslim populations of 35% or more.
Hi, I'm Femi OK. US President Donald Trump's so-called Muslim travel ban marks its 3rd anniversary this week. Trump is now talking about expanding the policy. Is that a good idea? Bad idea? Share your thoughts with us on Twitter or in our live YouTube chat, and you might be in the stream. To date, more than 31,000 people have been denied entry into the US under the travel ban. The Trump administration insists the ban is needed for national security, but in many cases, the policy has had a devastating impact, separating US citizens from their spouses, children, and family. Last week, Trump confirmed plans to add more countries to the banned list soon. Have a listen.
We're adding a couple of countries to it. We have to be safe. Our country has to be safe. You see what's going on in the world. Our country has to be safe. So we have a very strong travel ban, and we'll be adding a few countries to it.
But activists continue to challenge the so-called Muslim ban's legality, and some government officials are planning to introduce a measure to repeal the executive order entirely. Joining us to discuss the ban, Debbie Al-Muntasa, an activist and academic who's been fighting the policy. We also have Zara Bilou. She is a civil rights attorney and the executive director of the San Francisco chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations, or CARE. And joining us from Lagos is Yami Kasim. He's a journalist for Quartz Africa. Good to have you here, everybody. Let me just start as a quick refresher and remind us which countries are under the current travel ban so we can see where in the world that we're talking about. So I'm just going to put that image up there right now and you can see that. And then we're going to go from the current travel ban to what has been widely reported will be the countries impacted by this new travel ban whenever it is officially announced. So now we're going to move on to those new countries. And well, this isn't definite, though, Yami, but Nigeria is in the mix. These are the new countries under consideration. There is a short list going on right now. Yami, when you saw this, what did you think?
To be honest, when I saw it, I wasn't that much surprised because over the past year, I've done a lot of reporting about.
Who knows what the final list will be? But again, when you saw those countries, were you ready for this as a civil rights lawyer who's trying to help people who've been currently affected by the travel ban? Were you ready? Are you ready?
We've been in this seesaw about the travel ban, the Muslim ban, since 2015, which it sounds absurd to even say out loud, December 2015. So more than just the 3 years that it's been in effect, we've been back and forth on the Muslim ban for 4 years. And one of the ways in which the Trump administration has terrorized our communities is with this, like, is it coming? When is it coming? Which countries? My country, your country? And so some of these countries were surprising. For example, Belarus, right? A European country, which we have now heard rumors that members of the Trump administration are lobbying to have removed from the list. And then some of these countries, as we've talked about with Nigeria, we're not surprising it's a progression. But what has people on edge is not knowing when, who, and how.
Travel ban was lost in the lower courts and won in the Supreme Court 2 years ago. No, we're adding a couple of countries to it. We have to be safe. Our country has to be safe. So we have a travel ban. It's a very powerful ban. No, we're adding a couple of countries to it. We have to be safe. Our country has to be safe. You see what's going on in the world. Our country has to be safe.
We're going to take it through the system. It's very important. It's very important for the country, regardless of me or whoever succeeds at a later date. I mean, we have to have security in our country.
No more fear. Refugees are welcome here. This land is yours.